In any big city, you will find yourself constantly surrounded by people. Strangers, friends, family, lovers, enemies, acquaintances, it doesn't matter. Living in the city, you're constantly tasked with setting priorities. Should I meet a friend from Runner's Club? Should I meet a family member for a cup of coffee? Should I go on a date? Or just spend time by myself? And every day you're going to go through the same questions, not knowing the best way of distributing your time. And knowing so many people, I have to admit that at the end of the day, the city can make oneself feel the loneliest. It's quite paradoxical that the more people we know, the lonelier we feel. Is this due to our inability to stop searching and just settle for something we already have? Or perhaps by learning about the differences between ourselves and so many other people, our standards have risen up so high that nobody can ever come close again. Or maybe the loneliness comes because of the infinite pool of possible better options that keeps us hooked and never lets us be content with the present. Or perhaps some unsuccessful past experiences have forever closed the door to trusting someone and starting from scratch. In the city, nobody is going to stick around if you're not good enough for them. And why would they? Everyone is so busy and careful with their time, so why would you go for mediocrity with no guarantee of instant connection? First you think this type of behavior is egocentric, and later you find yourself becoming exactly this sort of person. Picky, reserved, and independent. The greatest thing the city life has taught me is to be self-sufficient. But I still often question how I've chosen the people I surround myself with. Why those particular people? And was this the right choice?
Back home, when I was living in a small town, I remember the first excitement that came to me when I went to college, and I was thinking, oh my god, I'm gonna meet a lot of new friends. But to my surprise, when I came to college, I quickly realized that that was not true. Everybody was already in an existing friend group, and it was impossible, totally impossible for me. Well, maybe it was, let's say, hardly possible to break into an already existing friend group, because the people were so comfortable with the people they already knew that they didn't want to let anybody new into their life, which is understandable. They just didn't have the space to do so. Over the time, I have realized that I'm simply not a fan of friend groups. Like, I just don't get the concept. You're stuck in the same group with people and you're so comfortable with them that you never have the initiative to get out of your comfort zone and meet someone new. Learn about different ways different people live their lives. Like, what is the point of that? Personally, I prefer to have people to go on a run with, or people to go to a club with, people from a book club, or people from university. All of those people are from different friend groups. Like, they don't even know each other. I like to be friends with people one by one. Because what if I get into an argument and then we have to feel awkward every time we see each other in this friend group? Because I can't leave the friend group, and that person can't leave the friend group, because there are other people that we like, but we don't like each other, and we can never communicate because we got into like a crazy argument that just changed things forever. And what am I supposed to do now? Feel uncomfortable for the rest of my life? I'd better have one or two close friends in whom I confide and I can tell them everything. But for most of the time, I prefer to have friends in different areas of my life, because this is more convenient. You cannot expect a person to have shared interests with you in every area of your life. So instead, why not find one or two people in every different area of your life and just be friends with them separately? Came into the city, I was really worried about making new friends, and gradually I found a lot of people, but that didn't stop me from feeling lonely. In fact, the more people I met, the more lonely I started feeling. The thing about the city, everybody likes to boast about how many people they know. People like to say, oh yeah, I know that person whose parents are actors, so I know that person from swimming class, or I have this friend or that friend. Whenever you speak even to a close friend, it feels bizarre to hear them talk about a new person they met yesterday, 2 days ago, 3 days ago. You constantly meet people, and it feels like this is some sort of eternal competition in the city where you have to meet as many people as possible, especially the people of some high status or some remarkable people, some well-known people. It feels like you're earning credit for that. And gradually, you become a part of this competition. You become a part of this game. You're so used to meeting new people that now you can't stop. And even the close friends you have no longer feel like close friends, but mere acquaintances, because they themselves know so many people that you're so lost who your close friends are. That could feel really alienating. This vast number of people, this inability to focus on certain 2 or 3 people, this constant distraction in your head, this constant need to meet more people and to recharge from them. I suppose the greatest thing the city has taught me is to be by myself, learn to be self-sufficient and not rely on other people, and only see other people as some secondary needs for communication, inspiration, or sharing my ideas. When I first moved into the city, I was really worried about finding friends with similar interests. Like, that was my biggest worry. Am I going to find people with similar interests? And if yeah, where am I going to find them? So I went crazy and I started going to clubs, I started going to societies, I started going to meetings to meet those people. And let me tell you, it was so easy. I found those people pretty much in the first week. What was hard is learning to spread my time between those people. Pretty much after the first 2 weeks, I've realized that I can't say yes to everyone. Like, I just can't say yes to everyone. Can you imagine that? Because during that time, during my first 2 weeks, I already made like 50 connections. And I just can't hang out with those 50 people one by one because I simply don't have this time on earth. So then I went into another extreme mode and I started saying no to everyone and just learning to be by myself. But that was also quite isolating because then I felt lonely, and then I was like, why do I even live in a city if I simply don't communicate with everyone? So there's no use in that as well. So the whole struggle of all this is finding this golden middle where, yes, you prioritize yourself, you put yourself first, but you also have friends who you dedicate your time to. How the fuck am I supposed to do this?
About a year ago, I was so focused on searching for people with similar interests. I was eager to find someone with whom I could communicate freely about the topics that interested me and learn something from them about the area of a shared interest. Living in a small town was quite an isolating experience, and while looking back, I could argue that this statement was to some extent an excuse for me to remain stagnant. I still did try to get out of my comfort zone. I cut out 90% of people from my life because I could see no reason for us being friends. All that was coming out of that communication was constant exhaustion on both sides and the excessive need to explain ourselves. The effort was too high and the outcome was not worth it. Since that period, I've learned what great effort it takes to find your people. By constantly putting myself out there, I've realized that the quality I valued the most in people was not in fact their similarity to me, but a simple desire to grow and change together by learning from one another. And was it worth cutting so many people out for this? I can never know for sure, but I hold zero regrets, because by freeing up the space there is always a chance that there is something better out there. And this is the risk I chose to take.
And I just gotta clarify that my decision to cut out certain people was not purely a selfish decision, but perhaps in some cases we both agreed that it was not valid for us to communicate because we didn't see any use in that communication. Or in some other cases, it was necessary to eliminate toxicity from my life because, it's draining. Sometimes it is not possible to bear a presence of a certain person in your life. But recently, I have been brave enough to acknowledge that perhaps it makes sense to leave it all to time and maybe come back to certain people or let them back into my life. And I know that I might be a fool for that because you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know if mistakes are going to be repeated or no. But perhaps in some cases, there is a use in giving somebody a second chance. I've already found a lot of people with similar interests, and now it is not the only quality that I'm looking for. Instead, I have realized for myself that there are some other much more important qualities that are to be valued in a human being, such as loyalty or kindness or willingness to grow and change. I suppose this requirement that I used to have in the past was something that put me in such a constraining mindset because that was the only thing that I used to look for. And if that person didn't have exactly the same interests as me, I would simply not consider them, no matter what kind of good person they were, because I didn't see the use in that communication. But now that I have people who I can discuss my interests with, why not let somebody into my life who really values me, who really cherishes me? And I suppose in the past, I didn't really see that. I was blind enough to ignore the people who really valued me or who really liked me because all I wanted is a mutual interest and a mutual connection. I'm not blaming my past self because I can understand that living in a small town is an isolating experience and I really wanted to talk to somebody about my favorite films. But now I've had so many of these conversations that I realized that if you only have people in your life who are very similar to you, then it simply becomes boring. It feels like a simulation where everybody is the same character. Why not have somebody in your life who is a complete opposite of you? In the past, I would say it's draining. I would try to change them. I would try to influence that person and make them fit with my own idea of what a person should be. But right now, I realize that that was simply an egocentric and selfish mindset. Right now, I am so open to learning about the differences in people's character and in the way they perceive the world. Because you can't know for a fact that your mindset or the way that you perceive the world or even your set of morals is right.
Not everything in life needs an explanation. Not everything has to fit into a broader picture and play part in helping you get to the ultimate goal. I believe that every interaction we have, no matter the nature of it, can teach us something. People come and go, and about 99% of those connections you establish will not last, because for the most part, we meet people to learn and grow from them, not to stay and settle. And growing apart is only a natural phenomenon. You might later on regret having had someone in your life or not letting someone into your circle, but at the same time, how could you ever know for a fact how your life would have turned out in case that had or hadn't happened? In the present moment, I'm just learning to appreciate right now, sharing the moments with people I've chosen to surround myself with in this moment, without dwelling on the possibility of drifting apart in the future or comparing them with someone from the past I have once valued. Most of the time, we all feel like the center of the action, as if everyone and everything is just revolving around us, when in reality the world itself contains billions of humans all thinking in almost exactly the same way, and unable to admit the fact and instead striving to constantly find minor distinctions between one another to classify and categorize for the sake of reaching the top of the hierarchy or happily remaining dormant in a chosen spot. All moving around aimlessly like dandelion seeds with no sense of direction, just following an inherently erratic flow of the wind.